We all know what it feels like when a fictional story ends with the hero riding away into the sunset, but things get crazier when the villain wins, and The Usual Suspects is an excellent example. This 1995 movie, directed by the iconic Bryan Singer, is one of the best crime thriller films ever made, and that's mostly because of the uniqueness of its ending. The movie starts off showing a ship docked in San Pedro, with a known criminal Dean Keaton seen lying badly wounded on the floor. A man named Kaiser enters the frame, shoots Keaton dead, and sets the ship on fire. Only 2 survivors were recovered by the police the following day. One was a Hungarian mobster named Arkosh Kovács, while the other was a physically disabled con artist known as Verbal. When the interrogation begins, Verbal claims that he and Keaton, alongside 3 other criminals, Michael McManus, Fred Fenster, and Dodd Hockney, had been hired by a man named Kaiser Soze. Kaiser was a mysterious, unrecognizable Turkish crime lord, and he had forced the group into destroying a cocaine shipment owned by an Argentinian gang. According to Verbal's narration, after attacking the ship, they discovered there was no cocaine on board. But before they could get off the ship, an unseen assailant kills the rest of the crew and sets the ship on fire, with Verbal only narrowly escaping. The lead investigator on the case, Dave Kujan, discovers that the other survivor, Kovacs, was willing to give a sketch to identify Kaiser. They also learn that Verbal and his team were set up. The Argentinians were actually not transporting cocaine, but were planning to sell a smuggler named Arturo Marquez to his rivals, since he claimed to be able to identify Kaiser. Further investigation leads Kujan to believe that Keaton was actually Kaiser Soze and had faked his own death. Verbal confirms Kujan's story, confesses that Keaton was behind the entire ruse, but refuses to testify in court. Verbal is eventually released, but soon after, Kujan realizes that he had been misled all along when a fax arrives showing Kovacs' sketch of the mysterious crime lord resembling Verbal. The truth is, Verbal was actually Kaiser. He was the unseen assailant, and his aim was to kill Marquez, but he needed the other criminals as a distraction. He had also managed to successfully fool the investigators with a fabricated story, long enough to get away. Despite the many plot twists, seeing the villain get away in that fashion is something no one could have predicted. The ending of The Vanishing was a bit more predictable, but that didn't stop evil from prevailing. And we're not talking about George Sluizer's English remake from '93. Nope, this is the original The Vanishing movie, released in Dutch in October 1988, and we'll tell you this, it's more twisted than any psychological thriller you've ever seen or read. In Sluizer's original adaptation of Tim Krabbe's The Golden Egg novella, viewers see a young Dutch couple, Rex and Saskia, heavily in love and on holiday in France. While on a road trip, they stop to get gas. Saskia goes into the store to get drinks while Rex fills up the car with petrol, but Saskia never returns. The antagonist of the movie, a wealthy family man named Raymond, is then shown to have been trying to abduct a woman as some form of test of his own moral compass. In his words, one can only truly be a good person if one is capable of doing something evil but chooses not to. Kidnapping a woman was his way of balancing out his good actions to test if he was worthy of his daughter's admiration. Doesn't make much sense, right? Well, most villainous motives never do. Anywho, Rex continues his search for Saskia, 3 years after her disappearance. This obsession to find his lost love leads to the end of his current relationship and eventually moves him to make a public appeal on television. After this, Raymond, who had tortured Rex with hints over the past 3 years, eventually confronts Rex and admits to the kidnapping. He then offers to give Rex his much-sought closure with the condition that Rex follows him. Stuck on his obsession, Rick accompanies the psychopathic kidnapper who narrates how he abducted Saskia at the gas station, and eventually replicates the whole experience with Rex as the victim this time. The movie ends with Raymond seen relaxing in his country home, and a newspaper is shown with the headline mentioning the double disappearance of Saskia and Rex. It's been decades since this movie was released, yet the experience of watching Rex slowly subject himself to a damning fate and letting the villain win is as disturbing as ever. Speaking of disturbing, the next movie didn't just have a terrifying ending, but has a horrific taste to it for its entire 111 minutes running time. The title, Funny Games. This 2007 satirical psychological thriller film was a remake of its 1997 original, but Naomi Watts, Tim Roth, Michael Pitt, and Brady Corbett played their roles so perfectly, it's been ranked as one of the most terrifying horror movies ever. The main characters of this story are the Farbers, a wealthy American family made up of George, Anne, their son Georgie, and their dog Lucky. The family take a trip to their lake house, only to be met by 2 strange young men, Paul and Peter. The duo initially approach the Farbers in a friendly manner, but as the movie progresses, they begin exhibiting certain weird and unsettling behaviors. Soon, they take the Farbers hostage after bashing George's knee with a golf club, and later reveal that they had killed the family's dog. Paul and Peter force the Farbers to dismiss their neighbors, the Thompsons, who visit, just before forcing the family to play a series of haunting, sadistic, mind-rattling games to stay alive. Unlike the title suggests, the games are anything but funny, and include making Anne strip naked in front of her husband and son. During an attempt to escape, Georgie runs to one of their neighbors' houses, only to find the entire family brutally murdered, presumably by Peter and Paul. The rest of the movie shows the Farbers each unsuccessfully trying to escape at different times. Eventually, as part of the games, the sadistic duo kill off each family member, first shooting Georgie before killing his parents. At a certain point in the movie, Anne manages to kill Peter with a shotgun, only for Paul to break the fourth wall by rewinding the events with a TV remote and preventing Anne from getting to the gun in the new reality. If seeing the good guys nearly win, only to have their efforts thwarted by time traveling isn't unsettling enough, then we wonder what really is. Basically, in this universe, the entire family were damned as soon as they came in contact with Peter and Paul, and viewers just had to watch the process of the helpless family getting killed. And that last scene when the duo knock on the door of the Thompsons' house and request some eggs? Yeah, that's really dark. But we're not done yet. Up next is another horror story that ends with the villain winning, The Wicker Man. Released in 1973, this movie is about a British Sergeant Neil Howie who embarks on a journey of no return to investigate the disappearance of a young girl, Rowan Morrison. His journey takes him to a remote island polluted with idolatry and worship of the pagan Celtic gods of their ancestors. Every citizen of the island denied the existence and awareness of any lady named Rowan, but his investigation keeps pointing to her existence on the island. His suspicion is confirmed when he finds her name in the local school register, so he approaches the island's leader, Lord Summerisle, for help. After exhuming Rowan's body and finding her grave, he finds her coffin containing only the body of a hare, which makes him believe she's alive. He then discovers the island's customary harvest festival and learns that the inhabitants offer a sacrifice to their pagan gods after a bad harvest, like the just concluded season. This leads Howie to believe that Rowan was going to be sacrificed during the island's May Day festivities. On the day of the festival, he manages to rescue Rowan, and they lived happily ever after, right? Wrong. Upon rescuing Rowan, it's revealed that the whole investigation was a ruse and a trap to lure Howie, as he was the intended sacrifice. The village head explains to the distraught sergeant that he had shown the behaviors that fit their gods' 4 requirements for the sacrifice. Despite his pleas and explanations that the sacrifice was unnecessary and that the poor harvest was a result of the unsustainable island climate, the villagers force Howie into a giant Wicker Man statue and set him ablaze as a sacrifice. So the innocent and diligent detective, whose sole mission was to rescue a young girl, ended up being trapped in his kindness and lost his life as a result without any repercussions on the actual evildoers. Damn. Approaching the end of this video, let's check out this American classic, Seven. Any movie starring Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Gwyneth Paltrow, and John C. McGinley already has all the signs of a blockbuster, but not in the way you'd expect. Rather, it follows Morgan Freeman's character, Detective Lieutenant William Somerset, and a young, short-tempered, idealistic detective played by Brad Pitt named David Mills, as they investigate a series of murders in a violence-ridden city. Somerset is close to retirement, while Mills is a young and eager officer who just relocated to the city with his wife Tracy. The detectives begin investigating the murder of an obese man who was forced to eat until his stomach burst open. At the scene, the word gluttony was written on the wall, and soon after, the duo find another victim, this time a man who was forced to cut 1 pound from his body with the crime scene marked greed. The detectives decipher that the murders were based on the Christian concept of the 7 deadly sins: gluttony, greed, sloth, lust, pride, envy, and wrath. And despite making progress with their investigation, they're unable to stop the third murder tagged sloth. When they eventually close in on their prime suspect, a man known only as John Doe, he manages to escape, sparing Mills' life for unknown reasons despite having him at gunpoint. Doe then proceeds to complete his next 2 murders, the lust victim being a brutally raped prostitute and the pride victim being a facially disfigured model. Doe then surrenders himself to the police and convinces Mills and Somerset to follow him to an undisclosed location where they will find the final 2 victims. On getting there, he reveals that he had killed Mills' pregnant wife, Tracy, because he envied Mills' life, making him the envy victim, and the young detective would have to kill him out of wrath to complete the 7 sins. Despite Somerset pleading with him, a catatonic and distraught Mills kills Doe, completing the 7 sins. In this case, it might appear the victim didn't win because John Doe died, but considering everything played out exactly how he wanted and Mills would eventually have to face justice for his actions, the villain definitely won. Last on our list, we'll roll back the years to a movie from 1976, directed by Richard Donner, written by David Seltzer, entitled The Omen. This movie was an unsurprising success as it was an international co-production of the United Kingdom and the US. It starred Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, David Warner, Harvey Spencer-Stevens, Billy Whitelaw, Patrick Troughton, Martin Benson, and Leo McKern. Quite the A-list cast, but yet none of those Hollywood superstars got the happy ending viewers expected. The Omen tells the story of American diplomat Robert Thorne and his wife Catherine and their son Damien. From the onset, it shows that Damien was in fact not their biological son. Robert was told their son had died immediately after birth, so the hospital chaplain, Father Spoleto, persuaded to secretly adopt another baby whose mother had just died in childbirth. The Thornes took in Damien as their son, and then, fast forward 5 years, Robert Thorne is working in London as an ambassador to the UK, and life seems to be going well, until it isn't. Unrelated mysterious events begin to plague the Thorne family. First, they get attacked at home by a menacing Rottweiler that appeared out of nowhere. Then, Damien's nanny publicly hangs herself during his 5th birthday party. A woman named Miss Baylock mysteriously pops up just in time to replace the late nanny, and amidst the ruckus, the Thornes hire her. After a number of other eerie and disturbing events, the family priest, Father Brennan, warns Robert about Damien's origins, claiming the boy isn't human, but rather the son of Satan. The priest then prophesies that Catherine would get pregnant, but Damien would kill his unborn sibling and parents. Soon after, Father Brennan is killed by a falling lightning rod, and so it begins. Over the next few weeks, creepier and more horrific happenings take place around the family, including Damien knocking his pregnant mother to the ground, causing her to miscarry. A photographer, Keith Jennings, notices strange shadows lurking behind the nanny and Father Brennan in photographs taken before their deaths. Keith tries to help the family find out the truth, suggesting by biblical references that Damien was the Antichrist. Upon investigating his birthplace in Rome, they discover that a fire destroyed the hospital, including Catherine's maternity records, and every member of staff was killed. The hospital chaplain, Father Spoleto, was now severely burned, mute, blind in one eye, and partially paralyzed. They, however, discover a jackal in the grave of Damien's biological mother and a child's skeleton with a shattered skull in the grave of the Thornes' biological child. Having seen enough evidence pointing to Damien actually being evil, Robert tries to warn his wife to leave London, but before she can, the mysterious nanny murders her. Next, Keith is decapitated by a sheet of glass from a truck, but not before he helps Robert to find a way to permanently end the threat Damien poses. According to an Antichrist exorcist expert in Israel, Robert has to kill Damien with 7 daggers on a consecrated ground. After seeing a 666 birthmark on Damien's scalp and killing Mrs. Baylock in self-defense, Robert is convinced of what he must do. He takes Damien to the local cathedral, but just as he's about to kill him on the altar, the police arrive and shoot him. The movie ends with Damien standing with the US President and the First Lady at the Thornes' double funeral, before he slowly turns and gives a chilling smile to the camera. The villain getting the win took a different path in this story, since the 5-year-old personification of evil hardly had to lift a finger, but there's hardly a more terrifying ending than seeing the Antichrist prevail.